Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Today, in the co-captain's chair, Mr. Jamie Laszlo.
What's up, everybody?
That man's still growing his facial hair back, I see, right?
Yes. And this is the day after Fall Fest, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Look at me, not hungover and home already.
Home already. How'd you do that? Wow.
Wow, I'm fast.
Yeah.
No, this is pre-recorded. But if this is Sunday, I do turn 53 today.
Well, I wish you a happy birthday in person.
Yeah, it is not. They're not happy anymore. It's just the ticking of the clock to the end now. That's how I see
Just
it.
another day. It's just another day. I know. I feel the same way. It's just a birthday. I don't generally really celebrate my birthday. It's just mine comes like right after New Year's, so it's like everybody's already Christmas and New Year's down.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's Pete's birthday. Oh, cool, happy birthday, man.
Oh, did you get gypped on gifts when you were
yeah.
a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, parties, get all that stuff.
Oh.
I mean, you would get something from mom and dad, but it's like for most people, it's just like it's an afterthought. So whatever, no big deal. I'm over it. I was over it many decades ago, so it's no big deal. So as everybody can see, we are ranking the short but very cool catalog of U.S. band The Sword. God, what do you call them? Stoner, doom, psychedelic band, on a hard rock band. They just
cool band,
yeah,
cool as shit.
Heavy rock metal band, whatever. They've kind of, from their first album to their most recent album, Use Future, have morphed quite a bit over the years. They've kind of, for me, you got the first couple of albums, you got the middle period, and then you got the two most recent. They're all kind of different from each other. They're all really good. Obviously, you prefer some over the others, but I would say there's no dud in this catalog. It's kind of hard to rank these. Well, I wouldn't say dud.
I wouldn't say dud, no, but disappointing.
There are some that are better than others,
yes,
and significantly better. But I think even the albums that are the couple albums that maybe aren't quite as good as the others, they're still pretty cool albums.
There's good things to be had.
Yeah. So we got 6 of them in total. We'll start with number 6, work our way to back to number 1, and of course I'll have Jamie kick us off with his number 6.
All right, I love The Sword. When it comes to all this new wave of stoner rock that happened maybe 18 years ago or so, this was the first band I think I got into that got the ball rolling for me. Before I even started listening to Mastodon, I discovered The Sword on the first album, and I said, this is really cool. And I've been following them ever since, seen them live a bunch of times. Last time I saw them was August of last year at Psycho Vegas, and it was the coolest stage. I wanted to show you real quick the stage. There's the wife. This was like hours before the concert. There's the pool. I'm sure a lot of people have been here in Vegas, and the band plays like 10 feet above the pool. And the pool water is only about this deep, but everyone, the water splashing and everything. It was one of the more interesting shows I've been to.
So when you're watching the bands, are you in the water?
Yeah, you're in the water watching the bands. There's the wife being the wife. And yeah, and it's a blast. And on the sides of the stage, it's deep enough to swim. Maybe you can't even touch bottom. But in front, it's like a foot deep, if that. So yes. Only time they've ever let me down is when they opened for Opeth about 6 years ago. And my wife and I were like, ooh, it's not their night. But every other time they blow the roof off the place. And I would say The Sword, man, for a newer band, when you think there's no more sounds out there, no more signature sounds, I think they have a signature sound. Yeah, kind of like the Cult has you hear something else by another band, you're like, that's Cult-like. I hear things by other bands and I say, that's Sword-like. For example, Wolftooth is a copycat band, a cool band, but when you hear it, the first thing you think is, they're copying The Sword. And it's hard to say what they do, man, because you can say big riffs. You're like, oh, it's like Sabbath. Kinda. Yeah. Oh, it's like Elder. Not really. They just got an it factor. It's hard to describe. But number 6, I wonder if we're gonna have both have the same one. I'm going with High Country. Disappointing album, long, 15 songs. The most disappointing album is the longest. It starts off with Unicorn Farm, and it's an instrumental and an intro. They do that a few times on these albums. It's this glossy, almost disco-like beat, and you know right off the bat, something's different. And then Empty Temples comes on, and that's the first real song. You're like, ooh, the punch this band once had is kind of gone, and you're either going to roll with it or you're not going to roll with it. But it's a good song. It is a good song. High Country, there's a nasty riff there, but it's just buried in niceness. You can see it's there, but it's like this. It's a badass riff played in a non-threatening way, and my brain keeps thinking, man, if this song was on Warp Riders, it would have been put up a notch, And Tears Like Diamonds, another soft riff. It's like listening to the first couple albums if the speaker was under a pillow. Instead of the it's more like softer, muffled a little bit.
Like the guy said, we're kind of tired of fuzz and distortion, so we're just gonna
we're not gonna change. We're gonna change our sound. We're not gonna change our songwriting approach, because the songs are still written the way the Sword writes songs, but they're played differently. Any of these songs could be on the first album. They're just being played differently now.
Yep.
So it's not like Cadaver where they changed, Isolation Tapes totally changed their sound. No, this is same song structure. And then Mist and Shadow, more of the same. Agartha, it sounds like if Wales had keyboards and guitars. If Wales had a band, it would sound like that. Seriously Mysterious, it's interesting because I should hate this song. I really should, because it's just a drum machine and a keyboard. And what's his name singing lead? Who is he? John Cornice? Cornice? Is that the lead singer's name? That's basically what it is. But man, the groove is so good. It's really infectious. I dig that song, even though it's real simple. Suffer No Fools. Now that has a old school Sword heavy rock feel, but it's an instrumental. But where's the rest of that on this album? Early Snow, it's a total skipper for me. The Dream Thieves kicks ass. Might not have the crunch of the early Sword albums, but on this album, what they're giving me, I'll take. Buzzers to me is like, 2 in a row. I think this album's starting to rock a little bit. Too bad it's track 11. But then it goes into Silver Petals. It's a little guitar ditty, another instrumental. It's fine, but on an album where I'm looking for gems, I got no time for this, Ghost Eye, it's okay. It's rocking harder at least. And then Turn to Dust, total skipper. The Bees of Spring, not a way to close out an album. It doesn't even sound finished to me. The lyrics don't even sound finished. So maybe it's not a dud, but it's first, when I listened to it for this video, it's the first time I listened to it in a long time. And right when you thought they couldn't be neutered anymore, they took 10 of the songs and did Low Country, where they did songs off of High Country, acoustic sounding wise, unplugged. Some of the songs work better unplugged, but still not where you're going to go this is not where you want to start, guys. Sometimes I say, start anywhere. No, don't start with this.
Yeah. It's my number 6 as well. And it's all right. So I said before, there's not a dud in their catalog. This is probably as close as you get, but it's still, there's enough on here to recommend. I mean, you hit on a great point. It completely loses steam at the back end of the album. The Dream Thieves and Buzzards are both probably the best songs on the album. And then everything after that, it's just like, oh my God. It's like, do we even need those on here? There's a lot of filler on this album. A lot of filler. I like Empty Temples. I think it's catchy. It's a really good rock song. It's got cool twin guitars, and as does the title track. But man, there's just like, you get like a good song, 2 or 3 average song, a good song, couple average songs, couple good songs, and then a bunch of really average songs. That's kind of like this album in total for me. There's some good, Suffer No Fools has some cool psych elements, which I always get the impression this band wants to do more than they kind of don't. But there's some interesting little instrumental things on here. I don't know. Early Snow is pretty good. I think for me, 15 tracks, there's maybe 5 really good songs on here, a couple that are okay, and the rest is kind of filler and forgettable. So yeah, it's definitely more accessible, definitely mellower. Did they do that on purpose? I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Right, but I think that their follow-up to this is quite a bit better, I think. So we'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, that's my number 6, High Country. Definitely not the place to start, but it's an interesting release in their catalog because it is pretty different. So
yeah. And I think this band, as much as I love this band, I do have my gripes here and there, songs here and there. I'm not gonna lie, but man, 2 of their albums are my favorite albums of the last 20 years, doing some of the best rock I've heard in the last 20 years. I love it so much. Those my top 2 albums. But they have a sweet spot before they got too light and after they were really dense. That sweet spot for me, man. Whew. Talking about when they were really heavy. Maybe this is controversial, I don't know, but I'm going next with Gods of Earth. I think a lot of diehard Sword fans love this album, maybe more than me, would even put it maybe at number 1. But here's the thing. Normally these bands, Mastodon and all these bands, even like Paul Bear, they start off really dense, really heavy, and every band gets a little bit lighter, more accessible. The Sword for their second album said, fuck it, we're going heavier.
yeah.
All right. So it starts off with the Sundering, which is this big epic instrumental. Okay. That they do that a lot on these albums.
Yeah, they do.
Then the Frost Giant's Daughter. A lot of these songs have references to fantasy novels that I've never read, like Conan and Thor and all kinds of different nerdy cool things. But the Frost Giant's Daughter, I think, is heavier than anything off the debut. But it's got really cool guitar work. I think Kyle Schutt is a badass guitarist, one of my favorite newer guitarists. If you see him live, he just tears it up. He actually did a side project called Doom Side of the Moon, where they did Dark Side of the Moon in doom metal style. So yeah, he's really cool. How heavy this axe? Ooh, how heavy this song, man. A song makes you feel like you're trying to pick up an axe that's too heavy to pick up. You're like, Lords, great galloping opening. Here's one of the things that I just noticed this week listening to these albums. What makes these albums so dense and so heavy and so messy is the cymbals. The cymbals clashing one over the other. It sounds like a sword fight, like 100 different sword fights, which I guess works. Maybe that was on purpose. I don't know, but there's no crispness. This ain't Neil Peart playing. This isn't any hi-hats. It's and his singing, John Cronice, on these first 2 albums. He became a better singer on the 3rd album. Here he's kind of wailing a bit. It could be off-putting sometimes.
Though. Yeah, it fits the music though.
Yeah, but it does fit the music, yes. But you might have to warm up to it, is what I'm saying. On their sweet spots, and even on the later albums, you don't have to warm up to his vocals at all. Fire Lancers of the Ancient Hyper Zephyrions. I don't fucking know. But it kind of, it's a dense, it sounds like a demo to a better song to me. Yeah, it is really raw. To Take the Black, a reference to Game of Thrones. It's really good. But live, I seen them do it live. First time I saw them was 10 years ago when they became kind of a tighter band with a different drummer, I think, too. It's even better live because they tighten it up just a little bit. Maiden Mother Crone sounds like it would appear maybe on the next album. Really like that one. Under the Bowels. It's a wall of noise. The song kind of suffocates on itself a little bit. there's no room to breathe on some of these songs. The Black River starts off great, gets, walks that tightrope between being a little too dense and being a little too light. It works. And the White Sea, big 7-minute instrumental. It shifts and turns and tempo changes and mood swings, and Kyle Schutz ripping it on the guitar. Makes me wonder if they could make a really cool instrumental album.
I think they could.
Yeah, but this is a good album. Hey, if you start with this, just realize you're getting the heaviest of the heavy here, but it's good.
More on that later.
Okay.
Number 5 for me is Use Future, their most recent album, 2018, 6th album. I think even more melodic than High Country, I think. And definitely a little more experimental. It's more of a straight hard rock album, which I'm totally okay with. Deadly Nightshade, really catchy. Twilight Sunrise, excellent song. I mean, killer groove, big fuzzy riffs. It's catchy as all hell. Excellent song. I think this band could be, if they wanted to kind of go that route and just do really up tempo, bright, kind of fuzzy, catchy hard rock songs and nothing but that, they'd be fine at it, because I think they've proven over the last couple albums that they can do that if they want to. That would probably piss off a lot of their longtime fans, but Wild Sky is also really good. You got little bits of keyboards. I do want to mention, and you just mentioned it too, they do really good instrumentals, and I would love to hear an album of all instrumentals from them, because I think they could really pull it off. Sea of Green, got more of a bluesy feel. It's got a little psychedelic nature to it as well. Again, they do the bluesy stuff pretty good when they choose to do it. Nocturne, again, goes that psych route with a little bit of prog and spots. Drumming is really good on this whole album, especially on Don't Get Too Comfortable. Really good. Title track is really good. Book of Thoth is the big riff number on this album, which I really like. I like when these guys do the big riffs. Brown Mountain, another one. It's got some spooky synths in the background. A lot of variety on here. Again, it's kind of a long album. There's a lot of songs. Not all of it works 100% for me, but the ones that do are really, really excellent. So, I like this. I just think compared to High Country, I think this one is a little more successful at them trying different things and going, into places we really haven't heard the Sword go before. So it'll be really interesting to see where they go from here. Because it's already been 4 years now, and based on the last 2 albums, I'm sure they're not going to go back to the early heavy stuff. So I think we're going to get more in this vein, and maybe they'll do more psychedelic stuff, right? Maybe they'll do more prog stuff. I don't know. We'll see. It's been an interesting ride, though. But that's my number 5.
That's my number 4. Saw them on this tour, and you'll be happy to know they're still kicking ass on stage, even though when they do these songs, they put it up a notch.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
They don't feel out of place with the earlier songs, I should say. My biggest gripe with this album, I'll get to in a minute, but it starts with the prelude. Like you said, Deadly Nightshade. Maybe not as the rocker that they used to do, but when you hear it, you're like, it's a step up. You already know it's a step up from High Country. Okay, we're on the right path here. Like Twilight Sunrise, great tune. Like you said, old school sword riff on that one. A little softer sounding, but that's okay. This is where the band is now. Yeah. The Wild Sky, instrumental, blends the psychedelic rock, like you said. The intermezzo, it's like this keyboard interlude. That's my issue with this album. I said I want them to do an instrumental album, but same time, I think there's too many instrumentals on this album.
Well, there's instrumentals and there's little filler pieces.
And then there's filler pieces. Yeah. And it just feels in the filler pieces and the instrumentals feel like filler a little bit on this. Like, is the band running out of ideas on actual songs and songwriting? And let's just put an interlude in there and we'll do an outro and an intro and hey, there's your 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I hope not. But there's some great songs on here that I like a lot. Sea of Green, you said it's bluesy. I think it starts off sounding like yacht rock with the guitar a little bit, but it works. Got a cool little chill groove. You nod your head to it. Nocturne, heavy keyboards. it makes me feel like it's the 80s Yes album, but someone told me when it first came out, it reminds them if the Sword did John Carpenter. Okay. All right. Don't Get Too Comfortable. I absolutely love. It's got a really cool sword groove to it. It's not heavy, but it's got heavy keyboards, like a bottom end to the keyboards, and that just kind of hum there during the song. Yeah, like vibrating the floor.
Yeah.
But it's got a groove, man. It's kind of like a beanbag song. You just sit in the beanbag and I don't know. You wait for someone to pass you the joint. I don't know. I haven't smoked in 20 years, for the record. But I mean, we're talking stoner rock here, stoner metal. So yeah. Use Future. Second favorite song on the album. You can stay in the beanbag chair. Because it's man, this song has a hook. Not many of their songs have a chorus that's the hook. Most of the time it's the riff that's the hook.
Yeah.
This song and one other song I'm going to get to on a later album, the actual chorus, what he's singing gets stuck in your head. And Come and Gone, a little too chill. Book of Thoth, I'm a little too chill maybe. Now you're falling asleep in the beanbag chair maybe. Brown Mountain, cool. Instrumental though. And the problem I have with it is half the song is a fade out. For like a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and then it goes into a reprise, which is a minute outro. So you kind of got like 3 minutes at the end here that's not going anywhere. But there are couple of my favorite Sword songs are on this album. So that's why it's where it's at.
Cool. All right, my number 4. I think my top 4 are really excellent albums. But the reason I have this one at number 4 is I think some of the songs on this album to me they all sound too alike. But the stuff that I like on here, I really love a lot. And that's 2012's Apocryphon, or however the hell you say it. Apocryphon, however you say it. APOCHRYPHON. Apocryphon, is that how they say it?
I watched a guy review it on YouTube 10 years ago, and he said it in the beginning, and I played it over and over and over. I think it's Apocryphon.
Apocryphon.
Yeah, Apocryphon.
Okay. That's what I thought. It's their 4th album. Awesome cover. I mean, I just love that's on the slip face you got. Inside, the cover's a little bit different, so it's and it looks psychedelic and cool and doomy and whatnot. You got The Veil of Isis, which kicks it off, man. What a great headbanging song. Cloak of Feathers, big, huge riffs. The song is kind of like mid-tempo, a lot of groove here. There's still a lot of the doomy nature of the early part of the band's career is still kind of going on here. Hidden Masters is slow and plodding, but it carries lots of heft. You got Dying Earth, which is kind of like psychedelic metal, like that a lot. Execrator is good, short, furious. Seven Sisters, a little more bluesy, right? Eyes of the Storm Witch, another cool one. It's pretty heavy. Title track is really good. I really can't say anything bad about this. I think just for me though, some of the songs kind of sound very, very similar to each other, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because they're all really good. It's a pretty heavy album. I guess you can hear little things going on in this album that would kind of foreshadow what's to come next. But I think it's terrific. Could even rank higher some days, but that's my number 4 for now.
All right. Number 3 for me, Age of Winters, the debut CD. This is the CD I bought way back in 2006. There's the vinyl I bought because I was at record store day and it was sitting there and you're like, I'll grab it. I like the Sword, I'll grab it.
Why not?
Yeah, my first taste of the Sword, really dug it. Celestial Crown, big, heavy, thunderous, thick riffs. Then that dry voice comes in, man. That's the first time you hear him sing. And yeah, you got to warm up just a little bit on that first album. Berail's Blade, and you're like, wow, the next song, this album is taking no prisoners, man. I think this has something to do with Conan, I'm not sure. I read that somewhere. I don't know. Wikipedia, Pete. Ask Chris Ello what that means. Frey was on Guitar Hero. a band has a song from their debut album on Guitar Hero back
amazing,
then.
right?
That's pretty amazing, dude.
Yeah.
But it works. And when I had Guitar Hero, and this is the one I would play the most, and I think it was the real song too, because a lot of those songs were like karaoke versions, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they were re-recorded.
They weren't. Yeah, they were re-recorded. I think that was maybe it was re-recorded. I don't know.
I don't remember.
Winter's Wolves, loose, sloppy, but and the riffs carry the beat more than the drums, but it works. And I love the howling wolves at the end. This howling wolves tell you this band they're really trying, but not trying too hard. The Horned Goddess, things slow down just a little bit, lets the album breathe a little bit, and goes into Iron Swan, I think is known as like a sword classic. Yeah, it starts with acoustic guitars and then goes into like thrash almost. It's a fun song. Lamnet of the
Auroch.
Rocks.
Auroch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what these guys are singing about half the time. But it's another favorite of mine on the album. It's like a slower head nodder, not a head banger, but a head nodder. March of Lore, really cool instrumental. And then Ebathron. Got those sword riffs, man. I love the sword riffs. Their first 4 albums, it's like they never ran out of them. They never ran out of riffs. I think they would take, as good as this formula, perfect it on my 1 and 2 a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean the top 4 are like, yeah, and I agree. I think for their first 4 albums, they were just coming up with a never-ending onslaught of riffs, and you have to wonder if they got to the point where like, all right, we want to do something a little different. Because
they probably ran out of riffs.
Or if they didn't run out of them, they just got sick. They wanted to do something different. I don't know. It's hard to say because there are riffs on the last 2 albums, but not quite like the early part of the career. Yeah. So my number 3, there are days where this could be my number 1. This is a really, really great album. Warp Riders from 2010, 3rd album. Yeah, I mean, this is awesome. Concept-y. It's little bits of psych on here. This could be, where you first start to really hear a little bit of psychedelia creeping into their music, or at least them wanting to experiment a little bit more. Acheron, Unearthing the Orb, has some really wicked kind of sound effects before the riffs and the drums just come bashing in. Killer lead guitar. Tres Brujas, all groove, all hooks. Love it. It reminds me of like ZZ Top on like lots and lots of steroids.
Have you heard them do Cheap Sunglasses?
No, I have not. I'm sure it's amazing. I'm sure it's amazing.
Yeah, it's good.
I could totally see them, doing a ZZ Top type of thing. JD's vocals kind of have a little bit of that kind of Southern twang anyway, which I think really works. Arrows in the Dark, total bottom end, not quite doomy though, but really hefty. The Chronomancer, 1, Hubris, kind of bluesy, but really heavy. Lawless Lands, also a little bit of blues, a little psych coming into the music. Title track is awesome. Night City's got really cool guitar work going on there. The Chronomancer 2 Nemesis is totally galloping, doomy, fast-paced doom, kind of like, Sabbath, Heaven and Hell type of thing. Man, The Night the Sky Cried, Tears of Fire, just totally amazing, heavy. Killer album. But you can kind of hear the band moving away from the doominess of the first 2 albums to try and, work on a little lengthier songs, adding, more of the standard kind of psychedelic stoner aspects to their music, a little more accessible grooves, which you would hear even more on other albums. But, this was a pretty big album for them. And there's a reason why it gets so much acclaim. It's really great. Like I said, there are times where I'm kind of like, I think this is my favorite. But over the last 2 weeks since I've been trying to put this together, it wound up in the number 3 spot. But it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
All right. I'm right behind you. My number 2. Got the vinyl and the CD. I think they produced their first 2 albums. This is the first time they got an outside producer. And they got a big name, Matt Bales. He produced Mastodon, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. So, I mean, he produced some big names. But this is the funny thing about this story, Pete. So Remember when Best Buy used to sell CDs?
Oh yeah.
So I went to Best Buy to buy this CD when it first came out, and this was 2010. So I was 40 years old, a young buck. I was still a young buck, and I was a little naive, honestly, because this is a new band at the time, real new, third album, and I'm still thinking, you know, especially newer rock is still for young people, man, like 26 to 38, especially these new bands. So I'm standing in line with this exact CD in my hand, and there's a woman behind me with her small child, like 7 years old maybe, and I'm standing there, and she goes, "Look, honey, he has the CD Grandpa wants." And I was like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about, Grandpa wants?" And it was a moment, Pete. It was a moment in my life that some moments just hit you and life is never the same.
No.
I realized rock is for the old at that moment. Oh, I got home. I was telling everyone and they were cracking up. Grandpa.
So just think, a dude even older than you. Right?
Now today, it wouldn't surprise me. But in 2010, I was shocked beyond belief.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a grandpa now, so it's like
yeah. So now it's not surprising, but back then
it's kind of jarring, right? Because you're thinking, the Sword, fairly new band. I'm sure people in their 50s and 60s aren't listening to stuff like that.
It's a moment when I realized that anyone under the age of 36 doesn't know who Phil Collins is. Go out, experiment for everyone. Go out and ask people under the age of 36 who Phil Collins is. You'll be lucky if they tell you he's the guy who did the Tarzan soundtrack. Lucky. That was a moment too when I realized that. So I'm sure I got moments more in front of me.
There will be.
Anyways, Warp Riders, I'm off subject. Love this album. One of my favorite albums of the last 20 years. I just think it's majestic as all hell. And it starts off with that Acheron unearthing the orb and with a slash in the middle. And there's two parts to this album. Part one, the Archer and the orb, and part two, the android and the sword. Yeah. So they're going, you would think this is like a really long album. 10 songs, like 43 minutes, I think. Not that long. Then Trey Bujas. Yeah, wow. Yeah, they are from Texas. You were mentioning ZZ Top. This is man, this is just crunchy and you could tell that vocals are improved instantly, and I love the part. It makes me feel like I'm watching an old sword and sorcery movie from the 80s. Like, I don't know, what's the one with Lee Horsey, Death Stalker or whatever, when they like, 3 witches you shall meet upon the path of your fate. The first will love you, the second will deceive you, and the third will show you the way. It's just so fucking cool, man. This shit is the shit. Arrows in the Dark, which kind of sound like a hair metal song from the 80s, but it's got great guitar tone, just fuzzy enough without going overboard. This is the shit. Stuff like this makes life worth living right here. If this song doesn't touch your soul, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Your soul's harder to find than the average G spot. That's all I can tell you. The Chronomancer 1, Hubris, every fucking song on this album, man. Perfect production. Guitar solos. God, I love the balance of the guitar solos, the cleanness, the fuzziness. It's just perfect. And the solo on this album by Kyle Shutt just flies off the record or the CD or the cassette or the MP. Lawless Lands. My wife loves the Sword. Now, she may not listen to the first 2 albums, but she loves her some Sword. And this was her gateway song.
Nice.
I played this song and she instantly, what is that as badass? You know what? And they're writing stoner metal with bits of space rock, and they're making it accessible so a girl from Kenya can get into it. Pure genius songwriting, if you ask me. Astria's Dream instrumental, really cool. Goes into thrash metal a little bit, but sword-like version of that. Warp Riders, you would think that would be like the big epic on the album, but it's not that long, but it's a great song. Night City, somewhat like Lawless Lands, where it's kind of accessible, but this is the other song I think that has a hook in the chorus, where that gets stuck in your head. Then the Chronomancer 2, Nemesis, another instrumental. There's a few instrumentals on here, but I don't mind them when they're this fucking good. And then The Night the Sky Cried, in parentheses, Tears of Fire. You're like, man, they're not running out of cool riffs on this album. And I actually have some hot sauce here. Tears of Fire, Sword, hot sauce.
Nice.
And it's signed by the band. First time I saw them back in 2012, I bought that and had them sign it. It's rubbing off a little bit. Their signatures are rubbing off. But what I do is I use the hot sauce and then I put red food coloring and water in.
I was wondering. I was like, if you haven't opened that, it looks like
I have a bunch of hot sauces in my kitchen above the counters. Each one has hot water or red water in them to make it look like they're kind of full. So, yeah,
cool.
Great album, love it to death.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna go number 2, back to 2006 for the debut, Age of Winners. Man, this album is so crushingly heavy. I love it. I like a lot of these albums a lot, but man, something about the first 2 albums, man, they just have tremendous power, tremendous riffs, big gargantuan fat grooves. I mean, Freya, Burial's Blade, Winter's Wolves, Total Doom, The Horn Gods is completely pulverizing. Iron Swan kind of picks up the pace a little bit. Lament for the Aurochs, massive Doom Stoner Collision. I kind of combine both names there. March of the Lore, great. And then the absolutely earth-shaking Everthron. I mean, this is so heavy. I love the guitar tones on this album. And it's like, and I think one of the things about the more recent albums that, I lament about a little bit is like, I kind of want that heaviness, that just killer, big, huge, fat riffing sound to come back again. And then, they do it on occasion, but here you get it every single song. So yeah, this to me is just like shaking the walls, heavy stuff. I absolutely love it. And it's just so immense sounding. So that's my number 2, the debut, Age of Winners.
All right. Well, I did say a lot of people put the Gods of the Earth number 1, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah, but my number 1, the vinyl, kind of hard to come by for the longest time, and this is a cool orange one. But they are reissuing it on vinyl for the 10th anniversary. I cannot believe it's been 10 years. Oh my God. And then I couldn't find my CD. Tearing the house apart looking for my CD. So I bought another CD. $9.99. Let me just buy another CD. But then I was sitting in my bar downstairs doing nothing, just like chilling.
There it was.
And there it was on the wall, signed by the band. I forgot I framed the damn thing. Son of a bitch. Whatever. Well, I got
it's all right. I had to read my used Future
recently.
I couldn't find my used Future anywhere, so I rebought it. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh.
And it's good to have the CD because this thing goes for like $130, and you don't always want to play that, when you want to hear the album. Just bust out the CD and throw it in.
Yep.
When I bought this, man, I was like, this is as much as I love Super Unknown in the 90s, I said, this is my new Super Unknown. It doesn't sound like Super Unknown, but it's got that majestic kind of vibe to it. You said some of the songs start to sound similar. I can kind of see that because those riffs maybe get a little similar, but I don't think they do for me. The Vial of Isis, or the Veil of Isis, right when it started, I'm like, this is what I want. This is exactly the direction I wanted them to go from Warp Riders. They're doing exactly what I needed. Cloak and Feathers, one of the best openings to any song in the history of rock and roll. I'll say it right now. Down, 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 down. When you hear it, it's like the party's on, right? Now the party started. That's how it sounds to me. Acrane Montaigne, every song just continues that bad ass vibe, and then it's got blazing guitar solos and breakdowns, and riffs, and then a breakdown. Oh man, it's a 4-minute song, but it feels like a longer epic because of all the different parts to it. Hidden Masters changes things up a bit with a slower doomy riffs. That's okay. You need to come down sometimes. What I like about The Sword is when they do these slower doomy songs in the middle, a lot of these bands like Witchcraft, sometimes when when it starts, you're like, they're gonna do this for 10 minutes, aren't they? And it's gonna break the momentum of the album. No, they didn't do that with this. Thank God. It doesn't break the momentum. It's not a 7 to 10 minute doomy slug before it goes into the next rocker. Dying Earth, listening to it first time, you're like, how is the awesomeness keep coming? How do they not run out of ideas during this phase of their career? A Crater, 3-minute banger. I love it when albums have 3-minute bangers, because someone like going back to Soundgarden, Super Unknown, it's got kickstand, banger, and then you're off. I love it when it's in there somewhere. Seven Sisters, oh man, love it. And then I love the lyrics. They're sobbing, and then one by one they die, like by the river. It just got that D&D feel to it, Beastmaster feel, or something going on. Hawks and Serpents. This album's not petering out at all, and it's track number 8. Total filler spot on an album for filler is normally track 8. No, it's one of the best songs on the album. Eyes of the Stormwatch. It's not one of my favorites on the album, but it's still a 4-star song. And then the title track. Here's the thing. It starts off sounding like a 16-bit video game from 1986. And you're like, what the hell is that? And then it goes into the big song itself, thunderous opening. And you're like, I can't believe that worked. I can't believe it worked. And it's one of my favorite songs of the last 20 years. And this is, I always said, two of the most difficult things for an artist to do is create a new genre in rock. Sword they didn't do that, but they did create kind of a new sound. And the second thing that's hard to do is give you something you didn't know you wanted. I didn't know I wanted some 16-bit sounding opening. They gave it to me. Now I can't live without it. I love this album.
Got to hear that intro to that song, right? You can't have without it.
Yeah, this is 10 years ago, and people, I'm telling you, not to get on the soapbox again, but albums can still get into your DNA. Oh, people, yeah. Even in your 40s and 50s, and we'll see 60s, this is way in my DNA. So there you go.
There you go.
I know where we're going with you.
Gods of the Earth. You kind of called it. Some people might actually have that as their number one, including me. Great second album from the band, 2008. Again, I was surprised because for years, I always kind of fluctuated back and forth between my top 3. There are days where I think the debut is just so absolutely crushing, but I think this actually, this picks up right where they left off with Age of Winters. I mean, the Sundering kicks off, and it's almost like it's just a continuation of that album. Great riffs, great guitar solos. The Frost Giant's Daughter is a classic of this style of music. So heavy, galloping, there's like a little bit of Iron Maiden influence there as well. I like the vocals. The solos are great. Twin guitars on How Heavy This Axe, absolutely killer. Fire Lances of the Ancient High Fairfrians, whatever the hell it's called. Awesome, big, punishing riffs. To Take the Black sounds a little like Danzig to me, like early Danzig in spots like that. Maiden Mother and Crone also remind me of stuff from the first album. The Black River and the White Sea to close out the album. Tremendous, big, epic, heavy. I love it.
So heavy.
Yeah, I mean, this album just to me is just so massive. And I think this, even though Warp Riders and Apocryphon are really heavy too. I think this was their last album like this, because I think Warp Riders and Apocryphon it's that middle period. It's like you can tell they're moving in different directions. They're still really heavy, but not like this.
My sweet spot, but yeah.
Yeah, and mine is this. Yeah, but I like both those first four albums a lot, and the last two have lots of good material on them, but they're just, to me, they're not quite as strong as the earlier ones. But
I feel like for some reason when I pick up this CD, I feel like it should physically be heavier. Like,
yeah, right.
Oh, it's so heavy, it should feel heavy. That's how heavy this is.
It's got some heft to it, yes, indeed.
But not death metal, nowhere near death metal, just heavy.
Not at all. Yeah, and it's really hard to compare them to anybody, right? Because at times you could say, all right, there's a little Sabbath there, there's a little Pentagram there, maybe there's a little Saint Vitus there, but like not overly so. And then there's this bluesy element, there's this little psych element, then you get some really cool, just hard rock stuff. There's you mentioned Soundgarden before. Yeah, you maybe hear a little bit of that here and there, maybe a little Alice in Chains, but they're really quite unique, I think.
Yes,
for the most part.
Sure are.
Yeah, they have their influences, and you hear them, but they don't ape. This is not a band that just set out to, we're going to do Sabbath style music. This isn't like, as much as I really like them, this isn't like the band Orchid, who also play this kind of doomy stoner thing, but they sound just like Black Sabbath. That's what they do, and this is not like that at all. So very, very cool band. A lot of great songs. Happy we have them, and like I said, it's been a while since their last one, so I'm really interested to hear where they go next, whatever that might be.
Yep, I hope they rock it up a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so too. But if they don't, I'm okay with that. Like it's kind of like Elder. Like Elder has been moving in this kind of direction where really, really heavy early part of the catalog, and now they're kind of more of like a psych prog band, and all the big riffy stuff is kind of gone, and I'm okay with that too.
And I should mention they do have a live album out. It's not a perfect live album, but it's okay. It's from the I told you I saw them open for Opeth, and that's the only time I was like, oh, not their night. Well, it's from that tour.
Okay.
And there is nothing from this on that album. It says spanning their career. Well, it skipped something.
I wonder why. Who knows? So for everybody watching, if you are a fan of The Sword, rank these albums as you like them down the.
I think The Sword has more fans on your channel than, say, like Cadaver or Elder. I think they have a following.
Yeah, I think they're a bigger band.
We might hit 2.7K, 2,700 views on this. Maybe 3,000.
Yeah, maybe three. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think The Sword are fairly popular.
Yeah.
Obviously they have a much bigger exposure here in the States because they are a U.S. band. So we'll see. But we might have some from our friends across the pond who have no idea who The Sword are. So we'll see. So if you're familiar with them, rank the catalog in the comments. If you're not, go listen to some of these albums and then come back and let us know what you think. Right. So it's all about checking out new stuff, and hopefully you find some new favorite albums here. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. When you're watching this, Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest will have already happened. So hopefully during
what a great time.
It was awesome, Jamie. It was awesome. It was great to see you in person.
How about that time when I puked in the garbage can? Oh, that was great.
It was awesome. We had some great grub on Friday night. It was awesome. We got to hang with Carmine and Peace. Had a beer with Andy Powell. I mean, hey, it's amazing. Hopefully all this stuff actually happens. Maybe that's a stupid thing, but
we don't all end up in jail while this is running.
So we'll see. But thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. Next Sunday, a week from today, on Ranking the Albums, I will be joined by none other than Guitar Hack to rank the catalog of Black Label Society. Zakk Wylde's a great band. So we're going to kind of continue along this kind of like stoner metal type of vibe. So that's coming up next Sunday. So stay tuned for that. And of course, we've got the Hudson Valley Squares tomorrow. So for Jamie Laszlo, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.